Greetings, brothers and sisters. I'm back with another podcast today, and today we have a very special guest, somebody who I consider a brother, somebody who I consider a friend, man. And I'm happy to just jump down and sit with him today and really discuss a little bit about his background, a bit about who he is as a person, and just have him introduce himself. So, without further ado, I introduce to you Aserial Krabat. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fucking awesome. Thanks for having me on, man. And thanks for giving me the platform to, say hello to your followers, to your fans, and just, show them that there's not only like C.Kendall, but there's multiple young generational witches out there doing an amazing job, like you are, and trying to change the whole game here within the occult.
Yeah, most definitely, brother. Most definitely. I mean, and that's why I wanted you on, to be 100% honest with you, because I noticed that during my coming to Magick, there weren't many young people in the scene, as far as authors go, as far as anyone really who had an actual platform. You had a lot of these mature people, and don't get me wrong, they're young, but they're in about their mid 20s, going on 30. And I thought, well, I feel like the odd one out here. I really feel like the black sheep. And then I come across you. I mean, you get talking, and I realized me and you are basically right next to each other in the age gap. And I was like, well, this is awesome, because I'm not the only one here doing this at my age. And I just thought it's great to show that. It's great to bring somebody else on. I mean, that really does show you that indeed, as the generations are going forward, that Magick isn't diluting at all, that actually is being carried on strong by people like us, by our generation.
Exactly. And I think, if Magick would be stagnant, it wouldn't be Magick at all. I mean, we're talking about a spiritual force that we use to change our realities, other realities, either if you're working for yourself with ascension, minor things, big things. And it's a constant force that evolves. And that's what the occult essentially is doing all the time. The occult as it is, or as it was, is dying. And it's becoming something new, because if you really want to and you're interested in these kind of things, they're all out there in the modern pop culture. They're all over reference in comics, movies, TV shows. And if you want to research something, you just got to Google it nowadays, and it's there right in front of you. You don't have to go and find the most secret grimoire and be an apprentice for a magician for 10 years in order to learn the basics. No, that hasn't been the thing for like 100 of years, and things are changing right now with the internet. And that's why it's important for younger generations also to use the different kind of platforms that are out there, just to step up and to see, hey, this is how we're doing it. This is how it's been done in the past, but we're doing it our way, and it's been working for us, essentially. So yeah, we're welcoming everyone, to step up out here, because it's not as dark and dangerous as it's portrayed to be. It's actually quite comfortable, to be not comfortable in a way of still having some backlash from people if you are openly practicing what we're doing, but the internet is so openly acceptable within multiple categories of currents that are out there. So if anyone is out there hearing this message right now and it's being broadcast to you, feel welcome to step up and say hello to the world.
Most definitely, man. Most definitely. I mean, I think the issue when it comes to occultism, practical spirituality, anything really in the left-hand path, most of it gets labeled as satanic right away, or most of it seems to have this very dark, edgy way of conveying it. And it's not really like that. I mean, just to clear up what you said there, I mean, like when you said, welcome to it, that it isn't as dangerous as many people convey it or portray it, most definitely. But when I mostly sit down with individuals and I talk them through my mentorship program or consultations, whatever it may be, I often do state, yes, there is danger within this, but the danger is mostly coming from you. It's mostly coming from the things that you're doing. And with any great path, with any great system of true active power and active change, there are going to be dangers. Now, that being said, it's not like it's being portrayed in pop culture. There aren't demons out there that are trying to tear into the circle and try to steal your soul. There aren't. I mean, that whole concept is kind of ridiculous when you think about it. These entities, they live in a spatial dimension where thought instantaneously manifests. So what good is a soul to them. I mean, it's just the whole thing of how black magic used to be portrayed, because it was a very taboo subject. But like you said, we're now heading into the type of that type of era, that type of time where this is acceptable, where this is something that's largely known now. I think it's more known, but it's still misunderstood, and that's why I'm glad we can jump on here and hash out a couple of things. But having said that, I do want you to kind of give a little bit about your background as a magician and kind of what got you into all this, and where you're at now in your path of ascent.
Oh yeah, most definitely, bro. It would be hypocritical for me to say that's not dangerous. That was more meant in the context of, hey, you can still go out there and show your face. You're not going to be backlashed or fired with 10,000 curses from other magicians. If you're brushing someone off the wrong way, that could definitely happen. But it's an open field here. Everyone is welcome essentially. If you bring something to the table, you're welcome. But that's why it would be hypocritical to say to not tell people, hey, this is not dangerous, because who am I to tell you that while I'm plunging myself into spiritual darkness and suffering from consequences that kind of hurt me, that I had to suffer myself through that. But I was the one that cast that first stone. I was the reason that, I went through many hardships and trials because I wanted myself to be tested, and I had to go through some changing experiences in life just to become a different person and to further ascend upon the ladder of endless existence of what you can become as a living, breathing God upon this plane and all the other planes. So yeah, going back into my past this is where we're like quite similar. We started this whole magical path at a very young age. Even though our currents or the way we started might be different, we still have that connection to our very young individual selves many years ago, starting all of this. And the sooner you start, and that's with every skill and with every type of thing that you do, the more you start to live and breathe it, and the more natural it comes for someone like us. Because magic can definitely be taught, but there are certain type of people out there that will always automatically click and be in the rhythm of that energy pattern, essentially, or of being here to learn these things and to experience a new kind of reality that has not probably been previously showed to them, because they've either been asleep for many incarnations, or they just are waking up to their own understanding of God or what Source really is. And that's what kind of happened to me when I was a child. I was always questioning things and just looking around being like, this can't be it. The way that they portray us reality and what it really is really about, getting married, having a house, being a consumer and working for someone else. And there's just God and his angels. And if you say something wrong, you're going to be punished because he's sitting on his throne with his white beard, scratching himself, saying, you'll be punished for your sins. Like, it sounds kind of bullshit to me. So I was like, I got to research a little bit more and look behind the curtains of, why these many religions exist and why we have so many gods, and looking into the past of ancient cultures, and going really into depth into all these secret hidden knowledges and scientific systems that were all occult back then. If you look at modern science, everything that we have right now kind of came out of the occult. Now we do have that departure, though, where we still have the occult, which is what we're doing, essentially the spiritual aspect of science, which is kind of cut away from modern science, while at the same time modern science is coming closer and closer to shaking hands with gods again, if you look at quantum physics and stuff like that.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's like Crowley once said, magic is an art and it is a science at the same time. Now, it's interesting where you're kind of discussing how this all began for you. So I was sort of the same, man. Now, many individuals who join on this page, who come on this page, or come on my YouTube or Facebook, whatever it is, they know I'm very open about my past. They know I'm very open about my addictions, about my abuse that I've gone through, all that. And it's very important to understand where someone came from to understand how somebody is now. So I never shy away from that. Now, going further back, when I was a child, I had my childhood taken away from me. So I was constantly very mature. I was very mature from a young age. I was thinking the same way, is this it? Is this what life is? Is it we go to school, we end school, we might go into college, university, we get a job, we work day in, day out, we go to sleep, we wake up, we get married, or we don't, we have kids, or we don't, we just thirst after these material things. Everything's so material. Where's the spirituality in it all? And when you did look into it, what you were confronted with were three systems, three most main known systems, and that was Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. And then you'd have other sections like Sikhs and so on and so forth. However, I done the similar thing where I was constantly looking up at the stars, just wondering what else was out there, and that this couldn't just be all there is. And it seems to me almost as if me and you have that sort of similarity. Whereas now, when I went heavily into the yogic currents, in yogic sciences and yogic path workings, there are individuals that are known as seekers. So mystics, they aren't satisfied with anything. Like really, they're constantly wanting to know more. Where individuals like us will pick up an object and will take it from face value. The seeker looks at that object and asks questions. Where did the metal come from? Where did the material come from? What was it before it was that? And then further and further back to the origin of all of creation. You retrace that, and that seems to be, there are some individuals out there like that, and that does pull you into these currents of black magic, practical spirituality, and the occult. So yeah, that's most definitely interesting. Now, on the subject of the systems of magic and the fact that they are sciences now, most definitely. You look at alchemy. Alchemy was derived with chemistry. How you would see two different substances and how they would react under different conditions and different catalysts added or subtracted to them. I mean, that's where most of our chemistry comes from. You look at the ancient old folklore witches that would use herbs and herbal concoctions, and most of that now is in our medicine. It's just now we've progressed so much into intellectualism that we're constantly thinking about the material world, and we think that the intellect is our greatest strength, when in actuality, when it comes to true ascent, when it comes to true discovery, your intellect is stopping you half the time, because your intellect can only understand what is fathomable. And when we are, like you said, when we are drowning within the currents of darkness and chaos and all these different unfathomable forces, it's going to be very difficult to use your intellect with that. I mean, you have to go into those systems, into this system, with a completely different approach. And that's why systems like trance work, like shamanism, to disassociate yourself, to manipulate your own outlook on things, is very important to you. And that's why you shouldn't question things, because the second that you start questioning your experiences or even getting in your own way, then you're going to be setting yourself up for disaster. I mean, you have spoke about that. We've spoken about our difficulties when we first started up, about it was over-analysis, that you constantly analyzing, well, this works, but why does it work and how does it work? Do the actual thing first, see that it works, and then sit back, and then analyze it. That's fine. But if you're trying to do something and you're trying to think simultaneously, that's a conflict of interest, and you really don't want that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the issue right now with modern science, where the paradigm shift is going to occur, where the soulless science that we have right now is going to reintegrate its soul into it. Because you can only go so far with your intellect and analyze things, while at the same time, if you really want to experience godhood, or like what source really is, the only thing you have to do is shut up your mind, and you can get in touch with that. And once you have both parties interlined within synergy, many things will be possible that have not been possible before. And that's the way to go for all of this, is not overanalyzing things, but still taking it through a very scientific approach, because we are right now in an age of science. While we can still work with spirits, have our altar set up, do all these path workings and these life-changing things for us, while still understanding how it actually works. But you got to first go and plunge yourself into the circle, do it, and afterwards you can make your notes and then kind of analyze, okay, this is why this happened, and then you can continue to work with the spirits on exactly these matters. I mean, you had a perfect entrance 5 minutes ago when you said, as a kid, you looked at the sky and the stars, like there's something out there, just that view just draws you in. That's why in the ancient days people looked at the stars as being the fucking gods out there, because it was unfathomable. You could not understand, why are these glowing things up there? That must be the gods. And this reality is so endless, and we understand just a tiny portion of it, while we are doing the things that are still being practiced in the shadows of actual spiritual scientific approaches towards many currents and understanding the reality, and trying to not manipulate it in a sense, but working through it and becoming your master of that, which is the approach of the left-hand path. Just yesterday, when I came home, it was around 5 a.m. We went out partying, celebrating a friend's birthday. I was just looking up at the sky, sitting myself down in an open field and just looking at the stars, meditating on Lucifer. And in that moment, it was either a satellite or a comet, but there was which I would call in that moment, the morning star, that just appeared out of nowhere. The sun was rising up, and you could see that one star shining bright. And it's that connection that you just can't question. In that moment, you don't question it. You know exactly that is the message that was placed right in front of you, either by forces outside of you or by forces that are interlinked with you. Well, at the same time, it is you all the time. And that's the paradox.
Yeah, that is the paradox. I mean, it's like going back to the whole situation when I was trying to understand the very existence of the gods, the very existence of these spirits, not necessarily why they're here or why they help us, but where do they come from? What are they really? And I'm always taken back to the show of Vikings, where it shows Ragnar Lothbrok taken to his execution. And this is a man who was a huge Viking warrior, an earl, a king, a farmer, you name it. And then he believed in the Norse god for a very long time. A matter of fact, I mean, many people said he was even a descendant of Odin, in this story. And the interesting thing about that was they would normally consult a seer. Now, during these actual cultures, you would have normally oracles, seers, or diviners. I mean, that are in these prevalent mythologies and cults. I mean, for example, you'd have a witch doctor, you'd have a seer, an oracle, and so on. And he's heading towards his death, and he sees the seer in the cart that he's being dragged in. And he says to the seer, he says, I don't believe in the god's existence anymore. Gods are just they are the answer that we made up to questions that we couldn't answer, questions that we couldn't understand. And in one sense, that's true. But then you're left with a whole dynamic of, well, did man create the gods, or did gods create the man? And that's the paradox, where it's, well, in actuality, it's both, because our logical minds can only fathom, well, one thing comes from here and then spreads outwards, but all times of singularity. Anyone that can really become ascended or transcendental in any type of moment, be it through divination, soul travel, scrying, whatever it is, you understand everything is a singularity. Everything that has happened, will happen, or can happen is happening simultaneously. So that's it's an interesting thing. Now, one thing I do want to say, since we're both young black magicians and we do have these platforms now, and you're coming out with I know a lot of projects, ideas we've discussed about. I want to touch on a subject with you, and that's the subject of these new age magicians coming forth. Now, my issue with this is stuff like TikTok, for example.
Yeah. Oh yeah, witch talk. Oh, that's quite something. Yeah.
Yeah. So that whole witch talk system. Now that's interesting, because I've seen maybe one individual who actually understands what he's talking about.
A black magician with black hair who has like a yay circle as well.
I'm not entirely sure who he is, but there's this one guy I've just scrolled past, and he seems like he understands certain things, and he knows a little into actual occultism, actual black magic. But then you have these baby witches or stuff like this, and these individuals are talking about, hexing moons and
piercing the faith.
Yeah, and cursing the Fae, which are massive mistakes. They are massive mistakes. And here's the problem: if you don't have individuals in each new coming of generations that will spread misinformation like that, then the people who are going to come into magic, who are going to come into the left hand path or practical spirituality, they're going to be misled, and their lives are going to kind of spiral out of control. And then maybe one day they'll scroll past me and you, and they'll be like, "Oh, hold on, these are two people that are in my generation or somewhere around that age, but they're not talking about hexing the moon. They're not talking about hexing Faye." And this is
Uh,
my problem. This is my problem. This is why I wanted to get you on and show individuals that, this generation right here, we haven't kind of stumbled down that path of misinformation and leading others astray. So, what are your thoughts on that? Because I think it's just quite ridiculous, frankly.
it is ridiculous. But you will always see these things happening in every kind of circle that is out there. It's just that I don't know why this happened. Like I was not even aware of witch talk. Until like 2 weeks ago. I mean, I knew that you were on TikTok before, and I was on TikTok a year ago. I was doing some weird ass funny comedy videos that weren't actually that funny, but I didn't even know that there was a whole occult, witchy side to that whole thing. But it kind of ties into together with like subcultures, where you have like alternative cultures like metal, rock that is also like interlinked with that. So if you, for example, if you look at witch talk videos, their algorithm system is going to like tag you and put you in a certain place, which is also the same place as rock and metal, from what I've seen on TikTok. And it's just basing things on subcultures, and it's how should I say? It's very important that these people that are out there are not doing this for the cause of just fame and or like disingenuine approaches of, hey, I am going to curse the Fae and the moon and whatever. These type of people that don't know what they're talking about, and these are the type of people that would just go to church and don't even believe in God and think they're Christian going to heaven, and don't believe in anything actually. It's once again soulless and based on bullshit. That's the same way within other currents, within Satanism, for example, as well, where you have people claiming to be the literal Antichrist, or people to say that Satan is their god, and that they do follow left-hand path principles, while in actuality following a right-hand path system, just with the touch up of Satanism on top of it. And this is not the goal. This is not what this is about. Left-hand path is definitely different from Wicca and like other like neon type of witchcrafty things that tie more into the new age kind of right-hand path stuff, which is fine. Everyone has their place. And if you don't work both systems, and if you don't integrate the light, you will always be essentially missing one part of that. So it's definitely important to integrate these things. But just seeing these people being misled because they themselves have been misled, or they're not really interested in the real occult knowledge and the power that's behind, and just in the aesthetic, it's while it's worrying, at the same time it shows that there's a fundamental zeitgeist and time frame shift going on, where even if it's just an aesthetic for these people, they are being drawn by these powers and they don't even realize it. So for us, it's important to do our job to educate these people on the real matters at hand and show them, hey, this is actually how it works, and we can guide you, we can teach you, and we can help you out as much as we can.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, when I go on this so-called witch talk, I see hundreds of individuals who have these tiny little cauldrons. They're about the size of a mug, and they're throwing in full herbs and sticks and stones and incense, and they're tipping just random type of witchy things they can find, and they're doing this with filters on and creepy effects and witchcraft type of sounds in the background. Now that is bullshit, and that is not how it works. I would love to actually sit down with some of these witch talkers, bring them on this channel, and say, okay, so you know what you're talking about. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Tell me. Tell me a bit about your background. I'm interested in getting more individuals like us from our generation on here. But when you have people cursing the Fae, which let me tell you is a real bad idea, a real bad idea. Now I'm part Irish, so I know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the Fae. But on Now, on the other topic of the fact that most of these individuals are following uh, just outdated systems, like you said, it's like Satanism. Now, when you look at Satanism, for example, they will say their god is Satan. A lot of them. Now, there are different branches of Satanism. That's what a lot of people don't understand. There's atheistic Satanism. There are theistic Satanists. There are different groups and sections of Satanism. And many people have claimed that I'm a Satanist. I am not by any means, shape, or form. I
No,
am
we're
not a
not, but
Satanist.
like we're still on that spectrum. However, like
Yeah.
we're still like kind of put in that category. But yeah, as you just said, like I identify also not as a Satanist.
Yes. So one thing I will say is, a true left-hand path principle is there are no gods, there are no masters above you. And that's very important. That is, I think, a mantra of a black magician to realize and to understand that this is a system of no boundaries, no restrictions, and no limitations. And if you do place anything above you to be a judge or to be a watcher over you, then you may as well go back into church. And it's as simple as that. And now, touching on the subject of light, now I always say I'm the left hand path. I don't believe in the middle path at all. And the reason why is because any type of magic that creates change in this world is black magic. Because in that moment, you're altering the very creation of the divine. And when you're doing that, you're assuming the power over it. So you are acting as the divine, which is blasphemous. It is forbidden, it is blasphemous, it is profane, and it is an ungodly thing to do, even if it's for positive intentions. And I hate when people kind of categorize light and darkness with these two systems, the right hand path and the left hand path. Because I'm a black magician in the left hand path that will work with angels, that will work with demons, that will work with gods and goddesses of all different sources. Light is very important. I mean, you look at Lucifer, for example. Um, he has the aspect of being both of these things, a spirit of darkness, but also the light bringer, the morning star, Venus, the sun. He is somebody who is the Promethean fire that is brought down for mankind to discover that fire and to enable the progression of civilization. So it's very important to keep that balance, most definitely, with light and with darkness. But I think that deep down inside, people have to kind of do away with this whole subjects of good and evil because they are not going to get you far.
Yeah, exactly. And while at the same time, we also got to be aware of our own patterns within that, and catching ourselves with our own bullshit. Sometimes where I catch myself disenchanting or like discrediting things that from the approach of the left-hand path would be bullshit. While at the same time, if you integrate it correctly within your system, it could be beneficial. Well, I do not think that magic has a color. Magic is colorless. I do understand where you say everything is black magic because you are going in as the author and the creator of reality, and there is no boundary to it. True magic has no boundaries, and that's what's been called black magic, and that's why black magic is essentially the whole magical paradigm and energy and world and layer of existence and force that combines everything. I mean, if you look at the light spectrum or the color spectrum, if you mix all colors together, you'll end up with black. And when you go away from black, you'll have the light, and you have the light being the feeling solid or the vibration that is filling the emptiness. Well, the emptiness is not really empty at all, but the actual source, or like the layer or the canvas where everything is painted on. So it's very important.
Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. I mean, at the end of the day, I love the term black magic because when you think of black, it's not a color; it's actually completely different from a color.
Yeah, it's
And when you take black, whatever color you're hitting it with, whatever spectrum, even if it's all at once, it absorbs it. This is why when you step outside, you wear black, uh, then or any other clothing, you'll notice that black will draw in the light of the sun more than anything. It is an absorber of light, and therefore I've always said that light is important, but to an extent, and light is finite. When you look at this candle right here, we can understand that the flame is burning a fuel. Let's take this as the light. This will burn for a very, very long time. Even our own sun will burn for a very long time. This will extinguish one day, and so will our own sun, and so will every other star out there. And when all the light in the universe, in the cosmos, does extinguish, everything will be darkness again. And this is why darkness is my go-to force for ascent, because light requires a fuel source. And if you notice, that can be seen in most of the systems of light, the archetypes of light, the spirits of light and gods and goddesses. A lot of them require a lot of offerings, sacrifices made to them, because they need a fuel source to keep the light ignited. Whereas darkness, it wants nothing. It needs nothing. It requires nothing. And that's why most people are shocked when you can work with a demon and they're like, what have I got to give it? And sometimes they don't ask for anything. And that scares some people. It really does, you know. But you got to remember, darkness doesn't want anything. Darkness has everything that it has. So it's an interesting subject, most definitely.